Hi, Kay. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Hi there.
Hello, hello.
I'm going back on.
Okay. Hey, Terry.
Can you hear me now, Amber?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. That's a pretty backlight you got there. The Northern Lights or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris has it set up for me this way.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Can you all see my screen now?
I can.
Cool.
Is there anybody else on? Oh, yeah. Hattie's on and Kay's on. And
Hey, Dewey.
How we doing, guys, gals, fellow board members, anybody else?
where's Dewey? How did you know he was on?
I checked the list.
There, I see. I gotta pull the list aside. So Tracy's gonna be on, but he has some technical difficulties, and you're not gonna be able to see him. But he said he will be on. Hey, Dewey, are you in your office?
That's correct.
Oh, that is cool.
It's nice and quiet.
Nice. Yep. I get that. Hey, Brad.
I'm not muted. Hello.
So far, Amber said there's nobody that comments or that put in the comment to speak.
Correct.
So there probably won't be any other comments other than if somebody writes a comment and then Amber can tell us afterwards.
Close this so you don't reverberate. Got a nice flag this time.
Carrie. Carrie, Barbie Hammer has her hand raised on the attendees list.
I think she might just be saying hi, but I'm not sure.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
Okay, did somebody call my name? I went to the other side of the house.
I did, but it's gotten taken care of.
Okay.
We're still waiting for, it looks like Tracy's on, Tracy Rowe. Looks like we're waiting for Melissa.
Okay.
We have Melissa.
Okay.
You guys hear me okay? Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, Melissa, but I can't see you.
I know, because Matt's running around behind me getting food.
Okay.
I'm not really me, I'm somebody else.
That's okay. Okay, so it's 6:30, so we're going to start this meeting of the Jefferson Board of Directors on January 11th at 6:30. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the flag salute. So let's start with that. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
Of the United
United
States
States
of America. And to the republic
for which it stands,
Stands
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Good. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you guys are all here, and I hope you all had a great Christmas and New Year's. And yeah, I'm glad you're here. So thank you for coming. So the first thing we're going to do is a roll call. So Dewey, are you here? Can you hear me, Dewey? Are you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
Melissa?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Here,
Okay, Tracy
I'm here.
and Kay,
I'm here.
and I'm here. Yeah, I can hear all you guys. Sometimes it's a little bit slow on the response, but I think that's just the wavelength and everything. So no big deal. Okay, so we're going to go to item number 3, review and adjust and approve the agenda consent items. So I will entertain a motion and then we'll discuss it.
I move that we approve the consent and the agenda and consent items as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's been moved by Tracy, second by Dewey, to approve the consent items and the agenda as posted. Okay, so is there any discussion? Tracy, do you have any discussion?
No.
Okay, Dewey?
No.
Melissa? So I don't hear her. I'll take that as she doesn't have any. Kate,
No.
do you have any?
No.
Okay. So we're going to call for the vote on that. So all in favor of the agenda and the consent items. We're going to vote for that. So, Kay,
Yes.
Dewey,
Aye.
Tracy,
Aye.
and Melissa.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Okay, spotlight on education. Brad, we'll give it to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As you know, part of our Jefferson Connected campaign is to keep the community appraised of what's going on in the school district, but also how we can make connections with our community. The word connected means connected in all ways. So Chris Shaw I've asked him to be in charge of putting films together that highlight and spotlight different things that are happening in the district. You all perhaps have seen them, but we wanted to show tonight our latest episode that highlights one of our students and what she's been involved in. So Amber, go ahead and roll her, please. We have sound.
We are Jefferson. Our studios, beautiful downtown Jefferson. Mr. Shaw.
Hello, and welcome back to Jefferson Connected. And check out this new studio. It is pretty snazzy. It has a floor and everything. Well, it's now 2021, and I don't know about you, but I'm glad to be done with 2020. What a year. This year is very special because it is also the sesquicentennial or 150th anniversary of the founding of Jefferson, Oregon. So this month, we're going to start each episode with a few facts about the history of our beloved city. Originally, the area of Jefferson was known as Conser's Ferry. Jacob Conser established a ferry to cross the Santiam River in 1854, which was in competition with ferries in Santiam City and Syracuse. These ferries became important to early pioneers traveling west. The Conser's Ferry proved to be more stable as flooding along the Santiam wreaked havoc on Santiam City and Syracuse, and eventually they fell into a permanent state of decline. Jacob Conser, along with James Bates and Jesse Looney, whose land now make up the city of Jefferson, established the Jefferson Institute in 1857, officially naming the town after President Thomas Jefferson. Meanwhile, Conser added a flour mill, a sawmill, and a school to the area, and by 1858, the city of Jefferson started to blossom. After a flood in 1861 destroyed Santiam City and Syracuse, the residents of those cities moved to Jefferson, and Jefferson became an important hub between Salem and Albany for shipping goods via the river, and then by rail after the arrival of the first railroad in 1870. In 1870, Jefferson was officially incorporated as a city, and that is how our town got its start. Next up, we catch up with Madison Montgomery, who has just completed her Girl Scout Gold Star designation, which is the highest award offered in Girl Scouts, and it's the equivalent to the Eagle Scout rank in Boy Scouts. Hey, Madison, thank you for joining us today. So how long have you been in Girl Scouts?
I've been in Girl Scouts.
What rank are you in the Girl Scouts?
I have the top level of Scouts. And like Boy Scouts have a highest award you can go. There's the Eagle Scout. For us, it's called a Gold Award.
And how long have you been working on achieving this Gold Award?
I've been working on this for 20 years.
So tell me about your project and what inspired you.
My project is on suicide awareness on campus, and that hit me really hard. So I figured I could take that and turn it into something positive, help get people aware of what
Anything else you'd like to tell us about Girl Scouts?
Think about doing it.
Thank you, Madison. And thank you, Jefferson, for joining me this week. I do want to give a shout out to Michael Barnes and the Jefferson Historical Society. The information used in this episode came from Mr. Barnes' book, A Pioneering History of Jefferson. If you want to get a chance, pick up a copy to learn more about Jefferson's early history. And remember, if you'd like to send us comments and tell us about some of the great things happening around Jefferson, we can include you in the show as well. You can send that to connected@jefferson.k12.or.us. I look forward to hearing from you, and remember, stay connected, Jefferson.
Thank you. That is our 6th episode, and we will be continuing to create more as we get more inspiration and ideas for what to cover. The sound, at least on my end, was a little hard to hear, Madison, but it comes across clear on the computer when it's sent via link or on our website. She was mentioning that her project was around suicide prevention and awareness. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that.
Is that all, Brad?
That's it, yes.
Okay, I thought that was pretty interesting. And I know I've never been a Boy Scout, but I know that it takes a lot of work to make it to where Madison is, or someone that's going for an Eagle Scout. So I really I admire that. The other thing I want to just comment on is a lot of people don't know that Santiam City during the flood, when that was, but it's really not very far from where the high school is right now. It's just a little bit more west and right next to the river, about a quarter mile west of where the high school is, and then down there by the river. Because I used to go down there, it's kind of behind my house, and you can still see some old foundations from where the city was. But a lot of history there.
Yeah, interesting.
So does anybody else have any other comments? Hearing none, we're going to go to the reports, and first we'll have Hattie do our financial reports.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So are there any questions in regards to the financial report? No. I do want to bring your attention. Amber, can you take it down one page? Thank you. So we did get our audit completed. So that's why why audit is on the agenda. It was finished on December 30th. That had to be submitted to ODE by January 4th. And so our auditors got us a final copy on the 30th and submitted it to ODE on our behalf. And I just wanted to bring to your attention our beginning fund balance for 2021. It was $1,116,953, which gives us a projected ending fund balance of $1,020,430 to go into the 21-22 biennium. So I just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention, that it is over. Not that we can spend it. We don't have the appropriations to spend the $225,000 that was over. But that really puts us into a good spot going into the next biennium.
So Hattie, are you done?
No, I just have one other comment.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Because I have a question about that, but we'll wait till you're done.
I just want to let you guys know that as soon as I get the hard copies and the auditor's memo for our board members, that I will be mailing you guys out an audit, a hard audit. So that's all I have. Okay. Go ahead, Terry.
So Hattie, that $200,000, that unappropriated money, can we use that in the budget for next year?
Yes. Yeah. So what we do is Amber, can you go down to the next page? It's the appropriations. Next one. One more. Sorry. There you go. So this is what we told the state that we would spend. So for like Fund 100, Function 1000, we told them we'd spend $6.6 million,
Right.
$6,069,269. So that's really all the spending authority we have. So we really can't spend. I mean, we always want to carry that beginning fund balance for next year. Instead of saying that maybe we'll have 851,000, maybe we'll have $1 million, right?
Okay.
So it's just being conservative throughout the year to make sure that we're going into the next biennium, with as much as we can.
Okay, perfect. And
Yep.
have they talked about the next biennium, what that looks like yet?
They did come out with a forecast of $9.1 billion. But we all have to take into consideration our student is going down, our population is going down a little bit with our students. So all of that takes into effect when we go to build our budget. So we have to do an estimate of how many kids we're going to have.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else that have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So in the past, I think two years ago when we had declining student enrollment, we were required to return money to the state.
Mhm.
I can't remember, it was $50,000 or something like that. It may be that we're in that spot again based on ADM with the money that we've received. Have we set aside or made sure that we have money in the event that happens?
That's part of the conversation that Brad and I have on an ongoing basis. Usually what happens is we're looking at the year before, the current year, and the next year. So what happens in May is they shore up how much money we got in 18-19 and lower our state school fund payment in May. And that's when, knowing that we've got a good sized beginning fund balance, our student population is going down. Do we need to set aside some of that? And so those are conversations that Brad and I have on an ongoing basis. Do we need to open up the membership and revenue with ODE to, say that we've got this less amount of students? Do we need to do that? Our little school really doesn't impact the formula like Salem Kaiser or Portland Public Schools does. So it affects our May shoring up for the previous year with our students, and they calculate it differently than just the ADMW. And then they always look at the ADMW for 2 years and you get the higher of either year. So does that answer your question? So yes, I do think that we're going to need to put a little bit of that beginning fund balance away. So when our state school fund payment comes in May and it is less, then we have a little bit of a backup plan for cash flow.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I was just curious. I mean, we weren't really expecting to have to repay that last time. So I think that was kind of a surprise to the board. So I don't know if the rest of the board was surprised.
Every May they do for the previous year and they shore it up. It's not like a payback. It's they reduce the amount that you're paid for that month for the previous year. And they always look at the numbers in December. And so that's why it's pretty important to be able to open that back up with ODE for the estimate and membership, because they're going on estimates of what you're predicting for the next year. And if it's higher or lower, you may need to adjust that. So it's a best guess effort throughout the whole year.
So Melissa, in the past, we've had that before. I know that it happened with you, but years before we've had that also a couple different times. And it is kind of like what Hattie's talking about, a best guess on what you want to do. And in the same sense, the formula for how much money we're going to get could change in the middle of the year too, where we all of a sudden get a drop on revenue.
Oh yeah, I'm completely
We've done
aware.
that too.
I'm completely aware of all of that. It's just right now, while our ending fund balance is looking absolutely terrific,
Mhm.
but we know that we're in a decline.
Yep.
You know, we can just about guarantee that there's going to be a change due for that. So
Yeah, and remember, our ending fund balance is only an estimate based on what we've spent year to date and the encumbrances that we have in place. We may or may not spend all of those encumbrances. So that money the ending fund balance for 21-22 could increase, but we won't know until we get to the end of the year if we had to spend what was encumbered, you know, so there could be more money for
Or
an
there
ending
could
fund
be,
balance for 21-22.
or there could be less.
There could be less. Yes. If something come up and we had to use the contingency, for example, you know, that would less what we would have to roll into 21-22.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on to superintendent update. Brad?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Kamladi, members of the board. In determining whether students should return back to school, I want to talk about that tonight. As you know, the governor made a shift in the metrics from mandatory requirements to advisory. And so in determining whether and when to return back, we need to look at several factors. First, are the infections, are they decreasing in our county and in our area? Is COVID-19 decreasing substantially, or is it on the rise? If we are a county in the red, meaning that case counts are 200 or greater per 100,000, it is advised by both ODE and OHA that schools do not open to in-person instruction. Currently, Marion County metrics have us at 572 per 100,000 with a 12% positivity rate. ODE metrics indicate that anything over 200 should be in comprehensive distance learning, and positivity rate should fall below 10%. Secondly, we need to consider what ODE and OHA are advising about returning. In a call with Colt Gill and the other superintendents last week, we were told by Colt to not make any decision to return until the guidance was updated on January 19th. To do so, Colt said, could mean that you would have to rechange and alter your plan again. They are looking at the metrics. They may be making adjustments to what kind of numbers we're looking at to come back and ease those somewhat, even though our county still wouldn't meet that requirement. It would make it closer. And there are other important pieces to what they're looking at too in the guidance and revising. So we really don't know until that comes out next Tuesday. Thirdly, OSBA is advising districts to move cautiously due to potential liability concerns. Although HB 4402 was passed during the December 2020 emergency session, which was the bill designed to provide limited liability to districts, a school district would be at risk of losing protections if it opened to in-person and was not in compliance with ODE or OHA's guidance, whether that be advisory or mandatory. Since the guidance still recommends not opening in areas where infections are significant, such as in Marion County, we would be opening ourselves to financial risk potentially. Fourthly, how do our staff feel about returning to in-person school? Last week, I met with the staff at each school. I asked them how they feel about going back and returning to in-person instruction. I also sent out a survey to staff and received the responses that way. We also made it available for them to email us directly or talk to their principals and have them share their concerns with me. I should establish publicly that all teachers want to have students in classrooms again. The desire is to have school again, but the majority of our staff do not feel safe returning at this time. Many of our staff either have health concerns or live with people who are at high risk and just feel that it's not safe yet for themselves to return. While about a third of our staff is prepared to come to school now, The vast majority feel it would be irresponsible to do so now prior to a vaccine being available and the fact that we're so close to receiving a vaccine. This leads me to my last point, vaccines. Today, we received a pre-registration form for our staff from Santiam Hospital. I sent it out today to all staff to complete. This is a pre-registration form. So based on the information, once we are able to roll out vaccines, our staff will have already done the pre-registering piece, which will make it go a lot faster. I also sat in a meeting today with Marion County Health and the other superintendents in Marion County, and found out that, confirmed that we're still category 1B. So we were hoping to be moved and elevated to 1A. At this point, we're still 1B, but that is the next group. They are progressing rather quickly through category 1A, in Marion County at least. And while they are unable to give us a date or a time frame, because there's coordination with OHA and there's just nobody there to say it's going to start, we're going to start with teachers on this date, they indicated that they may be ready to vaccinate our staff in the very near future. And when that happens, it'll go pretty quickly. At this point, Santiam Hospital has connected with us, and they will be providing not only the vaccines, but they will be a contact for us and letting us know when they are ready. I'll be meeting again next week with Marion County Health and the superintendents for updates. So this is kind of a big piece of the puzzle for being able to return and vaccines to happen. And although I don't have dates tonight, I am optimistic that by the end of January or in February, the teachers will be starting to receive vaccinations. So how do we move forward? To begin with, we began adding our limited in-person program today. We checked with our staff to see if they're comfortable with limited in-person. Those who indicated they are have begun seeing a small number of students on a very limited basis. Those who have expressed real concern have not been asked to put themselves at risk. We are following limited in-person guidelines, which means that students who have been identified through our care teams as needing additional support are coming in for a maximum of 2 hours a day for a couple days a week. Currently, we have 14 students at the high school, 13 at the 13 at the elementary school, and 26 at the middle school, which includes at the middle school both Odyssey Ware and Jefferson Connected students. And then we will be looking to add some more students as the weeks progress. In terms of in-person instruction, you heard me say in a video message to the community last week that my hope is to have all students return to school this spring in some form. And I stand by what I said. That is still my hope, but it is too premature to assign dates as of tonight. When we do return to in-person instruction, our plans will involve starting in phases, beginning with kindergarten and first grade. It will provide options for parents for both in-person and online, so that parents who are not comfortable with sending their children to school will not be placed in a position of having to do so. It will most likely involve starting in a hybrid model, dividing students into cohorts. We will be waiting for the guidance on January 19th, and then each school will be taking the new guidance and finalizing their existing plans for coming back to in-person instruction using that hybrid model. So when we decide to return, we will have all the details, processes, systems, and resources prepared. Regardless of our model, teachers will need adequate time to plan, as they may need to teach both in-person and online. Also, before any plans are finalized, we will be reaching out to parents for their input on the model. So in the coming weeks, we will be watching to see how the vaccine will be distributed to educators in the near future. We will be waiting for the guidance to come from ODE later this month, which will require clarification and planning. We will be watching the spread of the virus and looking for a decrease after the holiday spike is over. So the anticipation is after this latest spike for New Year's, it will decrease and start to improve in February and March. We will be increasing limited in person to support and enrich students. We'll be laying plans for bringing students back and finalizing our summer school plans. My hope is to have a more definitive plan for how we will move forward in our February board meeting. Finally, I'd like to address the families who are listening. As I said in my written communication last week, I truly understand how difficult it is on the mental health of some of our students not being in school. I truly do. I know how difficult it is to try to parent and to be the main support for teaching at home. To the students and parents who have reached out, I have received your letters and I hear you. I also hear the parents who have written to me expressing that their child is thriving at home in a routine and that they will not be sending their children to school if we open prematurely for their health and safety and that of the family. The comments I'm getting on both sides are very passionate, and we hear you and we understand all those sides. I want to thank you for your comments. This continues to be really challenging, but know that we will resume having all students in school as soon as we can do so safely. And we are making those initial steps to make that a possibility. That's my report. Thank you. Questions?
Brad, may I ask you a question? This is Tracy. Sorry,
Sure.
no video running tonight, or can't see me.
It's okay.
So, this is kind of a difficult question for me to ask, Brad. And when it comes to staff, parents, students, community, probably over the course of about the last month and a half, I've had many conversations working in the construction industry, talking with community, not a lot of community members, but talking with community members about the vaccine itself and a person's personal values, their elections as to whether they're going to get the vaccine or whether they're going to elect not to get the vaccine. Where are we at with that, Brad? How's that going to affect our district? And I can't ask you to comment about how that's going to relate to community, but how is that going to affect our district with personal elections from certain staff members, certified, classified students, things of that sort, Brad? I know that you've probably got limited information on that at this point in time, and you may not even be able to answer that question at all, Brad. I don't know, but it is an important question as to what our district is going to be looking at doing.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tracy. And the vaccine will not be a mandatory endeavor. It's not a mandatory endeavor right now, and it won't be for educators as well. It'll be something that'll be offered and encouraged. There are some of our staff who will be electing not to take the vaccine, and that is their prerogative. As to the planning of that, we're not there yet, I'm not prepared to answer a question of how the district's going to move forward yet until we have an understanding of how many we have vaccinated, how many we don't, and in what areas that exists and how that hampers us. We do know that there's going to be a certain amount of students and parents who are going to elect to not send their children home even if we open. And so just to be in kind of a hypothetical realm right now, you know, if we were to open at some point here in the near future, there's going to be families who don't feel safe to do so. And we still have to provide online education for those families, especially if we're still running a district in that's in the red zone, or high numbers. So if that's the case, we'll need staffing to look at that, and so there's a lot of things that we need to consider, but we just kind of need to know how many we have and what we're looking at before we can really answer that question.
I don't know if I'm still on board or not. How has ODE, Brad, given any direction or guidance on that as far as school district, how we're supposed to operate and function for those that, again, Brad, we have staff members that are not comfortable with returning to in-person learning. It's such a gray area, Brad. I'm just going to forego asking additional questions and allow you to gather information, Brad, and present it to us at its appropriate time. I guess it's still new and undetermined. So I'll release that secondary question.
Tracy.
Yes, ma'am.
Oregon School Board Association board met with the governor on Wednesday via Zoom, and Colt Gill and Dean Salinger and Patrick Allen from Oregon Health Authority, and they answered a bunch of questions regarding reopening and bargaining and metrics and testing and safety. Not all the definitive answers, and knowing that more things are coming. But these were some takeaways that I got from that. There's supposed to be $500 million from federal money coming towards school districts, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to be administered to school districts to help with safety. So that could be air purifiers, it could be shields, it could be PPE or testing equipment or stuff like that. There are also committed resources that are supposed to bring tests to schools in the event of an outbreak that possibly, this is kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but there's supposed to be tests that with minimal supervision could possibly be self-performed. Oh, dogs.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Right.
Somebody came in.
That's right. That could be administered and self-performed by students. Having watched students put pencils up their noses, I'm not quite sure how that would work with administering a COVID test, but OHA had assurances that even littles could perform this self-COVID test and that it was safe and that it could be done with a nurse or a trained staff after they had been trained in the event of an outbreak. Oregon School Board Association has questions about liability and what that could do, so we're waiting on answers from that. But so they're working on things like that. And then board members had questions about vaccinations. They had questions about staff in bargaining units that maybe were unable or unwilling to return. Colt Gill brought up under the governor's executive order that districts were able to reassign and move staff around as they possibly might need to shift resources around. And so what I've heard is that some districts are working through their collective bargaining process to negotiate that. Other districts are having volunteers where maybe some staff are staying in that online environment where they might be in a compromised place and they might not be able to return to instruction. So they're doing the online school, which we know some students are going to need to continue to access, but then other teachers and staff are confident and want to return to the in-person learning environment. So they're ready to go, whether vaccinated or not, or they're feeling safe with the safety protocols that are put into place with cleaning or face masks or cohorts or whatever. So there were quite a few different scenarios there that they're working through. I'm curious also that there might be additional changes coming to metrics to align the metrics to help with the liability concerns that were raised after that legal review came out regarding the liability, and that if districts were to return to in-person instruction and we weren't meeting the metrics under the advised metrics that the governor set out, that they may be adjusting that to make it so schools can open. And I have to say that this meeting with the governor last week versus the last meeting with the governor in November was night and day difference in her desire to get students to return, and understanding that that we're having a lot of mental health issues with our students in them being away from in-person learning for so long. Still understanding that there's huge safety issues, but there's been something critical that's maybe happened where there's an understanding that kids are maybe really being compromised by this time away from each other in the classroom and their teachers and that learning that they need. Still understanding that some kids are doing okay, but the majority maybe aren't. I'm trying to think, there was something else that came about in that. There was also a question about the rollout of the vaccines and the priority to teachers and staff and school workers, maybe being put first as essential workers. And maybe there being some parity issues when we've had essential workers that have been out there since the beginning of COVID, maybe at restaurants or, maybe at the grocery store, and that our education staff may be put before some of those people, and that may cause some concern. So I'm not quite sure how Oregon Health Authority is going to work that out, and they may be rethinking that because there were quite a few concerns, or some concerns brought up that that might not be perceived. Everyone wants kids back in school. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people want kids back in school. But knowing that there are a lot of people that have been out there working and serving, and we have a whole group that has gotten to be, maybe teaching from home or working from home, and that they may be prioritized over others that have been out there, may cause some harsh feelings. They may be thinking a little bit more about that. So vaccines are rolling out a little bit slower than they thought. So they're trying to work through how to address that. And they didn't have a whole lot of answers, but they said that they were trying. And also working through public information about, there were concerns that the vaccines aren't for children, where there has been some maybe monumental misunderstanding that the one vaccine is for 16 and older and the other one is for 18 and older, and it's not for that it's not really for children. Anyway, I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but it was a good Zoom meeting, really informative.
Melissa, let's move on. I think Brad talked about a lot of that, but you also gave some new information, so I appreciate that. So does anybody else have any questions about Brad's report? If not, we're gonna move on to new business, and that's
Terry,
policy. Go ahead.
Sorry, Terry.
Were you not done, Brad?
No, I was done. I just wanted to mention also that I sent a letter to the governor that last week talking about the importance of having a statewide plan in place for vaccinations and sort of the urgency of having to work with OHA and the different groups so that we could have some definitive answers going forward. So just wanted to share that I did that as well.
Okay, thank you, Brad. So we're going to move on to new business, and we're going to talk about the policies that were placed for discussion by the policy committee. So does anybody want to start talking about that? Anybody have any discussion on that?
Sure. Amber, can you actually pull up our actual LBEA instead of the sample LBEA? This policy that's up has kind of come
Melissa?
back. Yeah.
This is Tracy.
Yeah.
Before you do this, and just personally, I'd like to read it, and then
Sure.
Okay, is that okay?
Yes. Sure.
And Amber, can you minimize it so that we can see the whole document, please? Thank you, Amber. Thank you.
Okay, Melissa, you can go on.
All right. So this is a policy that is maybe one of the first ones when I first came on the board that the board passed. And in 2018, we had it on our books as a recommended delete for months. And to go back to that time, we had a giant stack that was about an inch thick of policy that we were working through. And we also had a pretty thick agenda at that time. We were doing bond work. We had some superintendent stuff that we were working through. We were also doing our the big project from OSBA with the scholarship, and the Promise Scholarship. Sorry, the name escaped me at the time. So anyway, we were having really, really long meetings. So we had a chunk of policies that got postponed and postponed and postponed. And we were also trying to work on putting stuff into policy committee, so we could kind of try and tighten up how we did things. However, I particularly recall and remember us working through, can you go back to the actual policy, please? Us going through this, as our district had used this and not very successfully in practice, the couple of times where we had exceeded the 3% and actually had to issue denials, the families were approved by the state superintendent and were permitted to go into the virtual public charter school. And it had caused some kind of ill will between the district and the families, for getting the denial. And then the other things that had happened were the virtual school that we had ceased. We weren't supporting that anymore. And anyway, it was recommended by Superintendent Klevitz and also by ODE as a recommended for deletion. So I'll try and show you. It's probably going to be terrible to see this, but recommended for deletion.
Okay, Melissa, hang on. If you want this deleted, or if you think we should vote on this as deleted, why don't you make a motion?
Well, I'm not quite done yet.
Well, no, because then we will discuss it after the motion is made.
Hold on, Terry, I'm not done. I actually recall and had notes that we deleted this policy, that Kent had brought it to us in one of those later June meetings, and that we voted on it as a board and we deleted it.
Well, where is that?
Well, I don't know. It's not in the record, and it was one of Karen Wistig's last meetings. And so one of the things that I had talked to when we had that transition with Karen and with the ESD, when they came to support us, is that we didn't have documentation that had been done. And I recall us talking about this as a board, and that, oh yeah, I remember that we voted and we moved to remove that. It's just not recorded. So we have all the documentation where it's in minutes and it's on agendas. It's just not recorded that we voted on it.
So Melissa, if it's not recorded that we voted on it, then I think we need to re-vote on it.
Okay.
So I guess you need to make a motion, and we'll see where it goes from there, and we'll discuss it if we get a second, and then we can vote on it.
Okay. Well,
because I remember, I remember this coming up many, many different times, and I don't really remember a lot of support for it now, and I do not remember voting on it. Hang on, Melissa, and I do not remember voting on it and deleting it out of our policy.
Well, Kent wanted us to delete it, and I have the letter from Kent where Kent wanted us to delete it. So this isn't the one that I think that you're remembering that we went over and over and over again. The one that we were having trouble with, where our board had so much trouble with, was actually another one that involved where we had months of discussion about it, actually had to do with collective bargaining language and another policy where we went round and round and round. But that wasn't this one.
Well, go ahead and make a motion if you want.
Okay, well, I would move that we delete LBEA as no longer recommended.
Okay, it's been moved that we delete LBEA as no longer recommended. Is there a second? Well, I guess if we don't have a second on it, that motion failed. So Melissa, I don't know what to tell you. You know, I just know that we've spoke about it a lot. And
so why would you now want to keep something that we've had on the books? And the sample policy, by the way, in front of us isn't our current policy.
No.
It's not even in the format that we would need to have to look at for changes.
I don't, if it has anything to do with charter schools and allow children out of our district, I don't want to give more than the 3% that we're allowing, because if we would have done that this year, we'd been another
So Terry,
large amount of money.
Terry, how do you stop kids from going to homeschool and
Or private
taking
schools, you
their
can't.
ADM? So
You
how
cannot.
do you stop kids from interdistrict transferring and taking their ADM?
You cannot, but we can
Um,
stop this, and it's a
so-
policy that we can stop it. And
So-
I personally, no, Melissa, I personally don't want it out of there, because I don't want the district suffering a huge downfall of income because of children's leaving. And if it's our only grab that we have to keep children in our district.
So what I would prefer, which I stated back in 2015, and I would state now, that if we're going to provide an opportunity for kids, that it be a good opportunity and that they want to be here, not that we create animosity in students or in families by forcing them to be here, and that we don't refuse them, and we can't refuse them from being homeschooled. We can't refuse them from the inter-district transfers. That this is not really any different. It's just about money. And I feel like if we're going to take care of our kids and provide a good place for our kids to go to school, our kids in Jefferson that we care about, that we want to make a place where they can either be here when they need to be here and when we're giving them the best thing that they can, and let them go when they need to go, and let them come back when they need to come back.
I understand your thought, but the rest of the board does not.
You're
So
speaking for the rest of the board right now?
Yeah, because no, I'm saying that nobody seconded your motion. So obviously the rest of the board doesn't agree with you also. And, you know, and so, you know, we've talked about this before, and we've talked about it.
Terry, we haven't talked about it, and we haven't talked about it.
I beg to differ with you. We
can go back. We can go back and we can listen to minutes, and we can find where that happened.
Terry, this is Kay Jones.
Okay, go ahead, Kay.
Melissa, because the motion had no second, it's not a discussion item at this time. When you have a second, we may discuss that in the future. But at this point, our meeting needs to continue through our agenda.
Okay, if this policy wants to be changed, or if you guys want it to change, then we need to see some changes that are different than what is currently our policy. And the sample policy that is in front of us is not anything like what our current policy is.
Okay, I get that.
Can I
So
interject?
go ahead, Dewey.
Hey, so I mean, kind of where I'm at here is we're in a whole different world right now because we have a different superintendent that's running our district and doing a great job. I would like to see him look into it and see where he would like to take this policy and then present it back to the board so that we can discuss it then, or possibly raise a motion at that point and see if we come up with a different idea of that. That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, remember that policy is a board function. So
I understand that part of it, but at the same time, administrative rules come into play, and can't we have our current superintendent see where he stands on it? And how it plays.
Okay, so do we need to vote on this tonight?
no, this needs to go probably back to the policy committee. So
Okay, Brad, do you want to comment on this?
Not tonight.
You don't want to comment on it tonight? Is that what you said?
Yeah, in terms of any of the new language or the thing, we'd have to look at that.
Okay. And so were these policies put on here today to vote through, or were they just for review?
So some of them are for board discussion. This one should have, this one we needed to discuss. So
It's information and action.
Okay, so it's information and action.
The intent
Okay.
was to have you guys discuss them and hopefully pass them. There's some of the last ones that we need to get passed in order to finish up our book.
Okay, so what about the other four?
okay, next.
It's GBNJ dash JBA AR1, the sexual harassment one, or the fund balance, or the DFEA admission to district events.
Right. So GBN AR, I had concerns about this because all of our other complaint policies have pretty specific language in them about how the procedure goes, right? We have very consistent review and very consistent language. So I asked for basically legal review on this. So Spencer basically replied back with pretty much exactly what I wanted. And really what I'm after is that our policies for our complaint processes are consistent. So this particular policy or procedure that we had language in it where it said the superintendent is authorized to amend these procedures, including timeline when the superintendent feels it's necessary for the efficiency of the complaint. Notice of the amendments will be promptly provided to the parties. And that had some red flags for me. Not necessarily that the timeline might need to be adjusted, but the fact that it could be possibly arbitrarily adjusted. Sexual harassment carries both federal, kind of some federal and some state stuff around it. So it's not that the investigation could not take longer or that there couldn't be issues, but that it's very process oriented and things are very particular, and that I felt like there could be compromise. So Brad has been to training. He's trained in this and feels confident that he wouldn't move forward on an investigation without legal by his side and wouldn't make any steps without legal. However, we don't ever make policies around a person and their training. We make policies to be consistent about processes, and to make sure that we're doing things consistently, and that whether we have Brad or whether we have another superintendent or 5 years from now, whatever that looks like, we're following the same practice. At the rate that we update policies, or we may go through another policy review, we don't really want to do this again unless some legal change comes down and we have to update it. So my request and my preference is that we follow the language where we match this language to our other language, and that the timeline is not changed without mutual agreement of both parties. And that makes this policy language consistent with our other policies. And then it would be in compliance with law. It shouldn't compromise us legally. It shouldn't make anything arbitrary. It's not dependent on a superintendent or an investigator's training. And then it gives guidance for anybody to, basically follow and not put the district in jeopardy. So that's the language that I think we should use.
So is it in here or it's not?
It's not in the policy right now. It's the language that Spencer has sent that would match our other policies, and that would make it consistent.
Yeah. Is that language in front of us that Spencer sent?
Yeah, it's the timelines may be extended upon written approval between the district and the complainant. And that's that bottom bracketed language. So Spencer says, all of that said, the district has other options. So that little bracket right there.
Okay, I see it.
Makes it not arbitrary and makes this policy consistent with our other policies and our other procedures that we have.
Okay. So,
and it makes yes, and it makes it not dependent on training or legal or, should we not have legal, or should we have a superintendent that hasn't had the same level of training that Brad has, that we wouldn't be compromised.
Okay. You want to make a motion on those on those four?
I would move that we replace the language that's currently provided in the policies for sexual harassment in GBN, JBA-AR, with the timelines may be extended upon written agreement between the district and the complainant.
Okay, you want to do the other motions too? The other policies?
We'll just probably handle one at a time for those.
Okay.
I mean, we can do it for the other, for the.
I'll second it.
Okay, so
just to have those language on those policies.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
My question is, so you've asked that we remove the JBA-GBN-AR, the sexual harassment procedure, the one that's printed, delete. So then are we replacing it with sample 1 or sample 2?
I think we're using both. I think they're different.
Hey,
Okay.
Terry.
Yes.
There was a motion on the floor and we're in discussion.
Yeah, we need, we need to.
Hang on. Okay, so Melissa made the motion and Dewey seconded it, I think. Dewey, did you second it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to, and Melissa, do you want to restate how you said that?
Yes, so on both GBA and GBN AR1 and 2, we are replacing the bracketed language the superintendent is authorized to amend these procedures, etc., with the bracketed language provided by Oregon School Board Association, Spencer Lewis. The timelines may be extended upon written agreement between the district and the complainant.
Okay. Okay, so with that, with the motion made and second, is there any discussion? And so I want you to continue with the discussion that Kay had.
She clarified my question by stating that we were looking at AR parentheses 1 and AR parentheses 2. So we're looking at in both articles to replace the bracketed language.
Okay. So are there any other questions?
Well, I have comments.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, Brad, if you had any comments on this.
So I like the AR the way it's written. It's the way OSBA recommends, and it is different than other policies because it deals with Title IX. It's not dependent on my training or anybody else's training. It has to do with the situations that one can get into, the legal situations where you need to have the flexibility to be able to have the authority to do this as superintendent. So it says the superintendent is authorized to amend these procedures, including timelines, when the superintendent feels it's necessary for the efficient handling of the complaint. It's not a subjective thing. It's not like a whim, and it doesn't so much have to do with the fact that I use an attorney and somebody else wouldn't, or like that. It's anytime you're getting into a complaint such as this, of this nature, these are investigations. These are things that take time, and we try to follow the established timelines. But there are times, because of the complications, we need to have some flexibility. That's why OSBA has recommended this language. Spencer put in the other language just as something else that we could potentially use if we didn't want to use this, but I like the language the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Are there anybody else have comments?
I'd like to talk, Terry.
Okay, go ahead, do it.
I guess I misunderstood the way it was presented the first time when I seconded it. I didn't believe we were removing the top bracketed language. I thought we were just adding the lower timelines, which I believe Brad would do anyway, with amending these procedures if that was what necessarily needed to be done. The timelines being extended upon written agreement should be something that should happen anyway. So I thought we were just adding the lower bracketed language, not removing the top.
So if I could clarify. So the concerns I have, it is Title IX. There are federal timelines, and things are, if you read through, and hopefully you've read through, the timelines are very specific of actually there's a handful. There are a handful of our policies and procedures that we have where we're following very specific timelines or processes that we may not have full control over, and they may put the district in a position of liability if we were to compromise those in a certain way, which is something we talked about in policy, in our policy committee. And one of the things that I brought up when I talked about, and we brought this up in policy committee, and Brad assured me that he had been to training and that he was very well trained in this, and that he would never, ever, ever arbitrarily amend policy without doing so without legal or legal counsel, or under the advice of legal counsel, is a very slippery slope for a district. And the assurance from a single superintendent that's been to training, assuring a board member that they have been to training and that they would follow steps and procedures and that they would not take action that would compromise the district without the guidance of legal counsel, verbally does not protect our district. So OSBA can make a recommendation and give us language. It's still not really terrific language. So our board to authorize the superintendent to amend procedures, including timelines, when the superintendent feels it's necessary for efficient handling of the complaint, and that notice is given to the parties, doesn't really put a complainant on the same footing, right, legally, right, especially in a sexual harassment situation where maybe things are really, really dicey and they may already be feeling litigious, right, as the timelines may be extended by written agreement between the district and the complainant, right? Where both people have had a meeting of the minds, right? Or they both agree that, like, hey, this investigation is taking too long. We understand that it's hard to reach all the witnesses, or this happened right before spring break and we have a 30-day timeline and everyone's gone for a week, or it happened over winter break and everyone's gone for 2 weeks and we've just lost, 15 calendar days and we can't meet or do interviews, right? So the second option provided by Spencer it makes this policy consistent with our other policies where we've had to provide some way for the district and a complainant to work out a timeline issue. But the language in the first bracket adds some other stuff in there that our district or our board doesn't really have any insight into. It basically says that this procedure could change from time to time. If you look at the Title 10, there's stuff in there that shouldn't ever change or shouldn't ever be amended, and that box says that it can change and can be amended. Makes me feel really, really uncomfortable because most of this language is basically federal language or federal procedure that's been copy and pasted and put into a procedure for us to follow. It's scripted. So the wiggle room that we have is that both parties agree to it, not that the superintendent can change it when he feels it's necessary or she feels it's necessary.
Okay, well,
they agree.
Yeah. Okay, let's vote on it then, and let's see what people say. So, Melissa, what's your vote?
Aye.
On the current motion that you put in there. Aye. Okay. Kay?
Nay.
Nay. Tracy?
Nay.
Dewey?
Nay.
Okay. Chair votes nay. Okay, so with that happening, do we want to accept the GBN/JBAAR with one in parentheses? Do we want to accept it as written here? And if so, I need a motion for it. As presented, yeah. So does somebody want to make a motion for it as presented?
All right, I'm looking at page 121. Is that the one we're talking about?
Is that the one, Amber?
Currently, I'm seeing page 108 on my screen.
Yeah, I think that's 108 in the policy. I don't think, is that's not the one in our package, I don't think. Amber?
What was that, Terry?
Is that this one that's on the screen? Is that the one that's presented?
This is the one that's as presented. GBN, JBA, AR1, and AR2. As you see them here, with OSBA's recommendations, you can see in the little brackets with the red.
Yeah.
And, those are their recommendations.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion for that? Or do we want to go back to policy committee? Okay, hearing no motion for that, then we'll just send that one back to policy committee with the prior one. And we have 3 more there. Or wait a minute, is JBA/GBNAR1, is that included in that first one? The one above it?
AR1 and 2 are together.
Okay. So the 2 that we can vote on are DBA or DB and DB, and then DF and EA.
Yes.
The intent was to have you individually go through each of these ones, have the discussion as to what needed to be done to them, and then possibly accept them so that we can get our book completed.
Okay.
So it will just hold up our book being completed.
Okay, so let's go to DBDB. Is there, go ahead.
Can I request a 5-minute recess, please?
Okay, we'll have a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back to those 2. We have a 5-minute break. What's that spark from the site?
How long are you going?
I don't know. There's not that much left. She's Okay, we're gonna resume this meeting. And so I guess the next policy that we have to look at and discuss is DBDB, which is a fund balance. So does anybody have a motion to accept that one?
Well, we wanted to have some discussion about this because
Well, we will discuss it if we get a motion. I know, but we have to do it the correct way.
well, we can also have information about it before we even put it up there for discussion. So, because we might want to amend it first.
Well, then we can amend it after if the motion fails.
Well, that's a
Robert
lot.
Russo,
It's a lot of extra work.
I know,
So
Kate, or I know, Melissa, but that's the way that we're going to do it. And and that's I guess that's my prerogative as a board chair. So if somebody wants to make a motion to accept that fund balance, and then we can discuss it. So does anybody want to make a motion?
Terry?
Yep.
I'm going to, as one of 5 board members, there's a lot of policies that we have to go through and that we have to look at. I'd like to take a minute and a half of time to read this, and then we can move forward with the motion process, if that's okay with you.
Yep. And Amber has it up there. Okay, has everybody read it?
I'm prepared.
Okay, you want to speak, Tracy, or make a motion?
Not at this time.
Does anybody else want to make a motion?
it would really be helpful if we could just have some board discussion first, so we could talk about some history and some stuff that happened in the past before we got to this.
Well, since nobody wants to make a motion, I guess we'll let you discuss it, Melissa. Give us some history.
Okay, so in the past, an auditor came in, and this is going to be helpful with some board history from some of you that have been around for a while, and recommended that the board have a fund balance of a certain percent. And in the past, we've been in pretty dire straits, and we weren't able to even come up with a fund balance. I think maybe even when I started on the board that maybe we had $50,000 and we couldn't even meet 1%. We're doing pretty well right now, but an auditor had recommended that we work towards a goal and that we have something like this as a priority for our board. there's a threshold here that's been recommended by Hattie of 5 to 8%, which gives the district a little bit of leeway. But the question that I had that I can't remember, and I haven't been on the board that long, and I haven't been part of the finance committee or part of those audits where those recommendations came through, is what those auditors had recommended that we have, and what seems reasonable to the board that we have as that fund balance that we have of our revenues to give our district and to do planning that we have, that fund balance for futures. So that's why this is actually in front of the board. Dewey and I didn't really feel confident, for he and I to work that out. We didn't have the history. We wanted to have it as a board discussion. It doesn't really feel right to make a motion on it and then to sort out a bunch of amendments later when we could probably have the discussion, work through it, and then vote on it. It's a wonky way to do this, but it was hard to do it in policy committee, not having that history between he or I.
So I remember that our audit said we should have anywhere between 5 and 10% of our total adopted revenues. And I think Hattie, are you online, Hattie?
I am.
Do you remember that to be around that same amount, 5 to 10%?
Most policies that I've worked with different school districts working at LBL, it was between, sometimes even lower. It was 3 to 8%. And I just calculated it. If we do 5% on $17 million, that's your total budget. It's $850,000, and 8% is 1.3 million. And what I showed you today, the $1 million is just for general fund. It doesn't have anything to do with it. I didn't give you any numbers for our special revenues. And if we have this any higher for our total budget, it's going to complicate our grants because you cannot have a fund balance to roll over with those grants. So it would pretty much, it would need it to be just general fund.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I probably didn't think that it would apply to our special revenues, but just our general fund. So,
well, it says a total adopted revenues. And so that would include any grants in the special revenue. And it would really scare me to have 5 to 8% and have to include the special revenues, especially, when we're getting substantial amounts from ESSER, from CDL, from the COVID relief. But that's these are our board policies, so it's for the board to decide. But my recommendation would be 5 to 8%.
Okay, thank you, Hattie.
You're welcome.
So does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yep.
Okay.
Dewey, does that help you?
Yeah,
I don't see Dewey.
That clarifies some things for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think
All right.
that's what we wanted everybody else to see, the 5 to 8%, and make sure they were okay with it. So I'll make a motion that we adopt the DB policy fund balance as presented.
I'll
I'll
second
second.
the motion.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to adopt the DBDB as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa?
Aye.
Aye. Dewey?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
And Kay?
Aye.
Okay, and chair votes aye. Okay, next one. DFEA. So does somebody want to make a motion for that one so we can discuss it, or do we have some more information?
Well, I've got some.
You want to,
I've got-
okay, wait a minute, Melissa. Do we want to take a couple minutes? Let's take a couple minutes to read it.
Well, I got a quick question first. We were supposed to get some information back from Kathy Emmerich and some clarification. Did that happen?
Do not know.
Amber, can you clarify that?
In regards to what exactly?
Well, Kathy was going to get back to us about some clarification about who was getting in with what, and I thought there were a couple of other details that she was going to provide, if I remember right from our policy meeting. I thought we had one version that we really liked, and we were going to get clarification on a couple of items.
Melissa, would that be version number 2, where you wanted to find out about the League of Oregon High School Coaches Association?
Yeah, that was it. Because what happens is the prices or going into certain OS,
Well, so for example, like right now, so number 3, all complimentary student passes issued to senior letterman dated blah. Like that's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Are you talking about number 3 on 2 or version 3?
Amber, can you back up to number 2?
Version 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So so we currently honor League and Oregon. We honor those passes, but like our student body, like we have an ASB process right now, and we don't have a letter. We don't have a senior letterman thing, right? Students get in with their ASB, or we just know who students are, right? And then the principal also allows certain, there might be certain people that the principal allows in. So I thought we were going to get some clarification on some of those things that maybe hasn't happened yet.
But I mean, to see if she's.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk to her.
This one might just have to go back to policy, and we don't quite have our updates yet. We were almost there.
Okay. So I take it there's not a motion for either versions?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let Kathy talk if I could. For just a
Okay.
second.
Okay. I didn't know you were calling her.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just thought I'd give her a call really quick.
Hi,
Kathy,
everyone. I do remember what it was, Melissa. We were concerned about point number 1 on version 2, that citizens over the age of 65 will be admitted for free because our league sets that ticket price.
Okay.
And so for league games, that ticket price is set for league home games, and all schools try to do it the exact same. And so that was one that I was really concerned about. And then number 3 on there is not something that we do, but the rest was all okay.
Okay, but number 3, we do have ASB. We were trying to capture the ASB language somehow. Maybe we can just send that one back to committee, which we have committee on Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Let's hammer this out in policy committee and clean up the language, so we don't mess up our time. This one was almost ready. We just wanted to. We really liked version 2, but we needed to comb through it a little tiny bit.
Okay, we'll bring it back. Okay, so is there any other discussion on any of these policies on new business?
Chair Terry,
Yes.
this is Jones. At this point, I understand that we have the GBNJBA going back to committee, but I believe the LBEA stands as it is in our directory at this time, in our policy at this time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank
So
you. That's all I wanted clarification for.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, we're going to move over to board elections, and the reason let me see. I got to find it here.
Page 142.
Yeah, I had it all setting out for me. Well, anyway, so it talks about the elections that are coming up. And here they are. And what it's talking about is that there's going to be, the elections are for May 18th of the 2020. And we have 3 positions open for the directors of the school board in Jefferson. And I know that there is some interest from the community. And I just wanted to mention to them that it's position 2, position 4, and position 5 that are open for re-election this year. And you can go to the election office in Salem anytime after February 6th to find out what you need to do in that election. You can submit it from February 6th to March 18th. And we actually have some copies of the application at the school. So anybody that is interested in running for a school board can get the application at the school and take it to the election office in Salem during that time. Okay, so the next is, let me get my stuff here, is I'd like to have a work session this month sometime, and for 2 things actually. Now, because we do have some policy that isn't done, and if we can get that hashed out in the policy committee can get that hashed out and get it back to us at the work session, we can get these books closed on this policy. And the second thing is I was looking through what our board reporter, what her responsibility is for Amber. And we really don't have anything written down on what her responsibilities are to the board. So as a work session, I'd like to meet together and kind of hammer out what we believe her responsibility should be towards the board. So does anybody have a date that will work on a Monday or I don't know, Monday of the rest of this month or any day? Or do you want me just to pick one?
I am not available the rest of the Mondays of this month.
Okay.
Oh, anytime, Terry.
Let me look here on my calendar. So Melissa, what about like Wednesdays?
It would probably need to be the last week of the month, like I could do the 27th.
Or what about the 28th?
I could do the 28th, yeah.
Okay, I can do the 28th. Can everybody else do the 28th?
I can do the 28th, Kay.
Okay.
I'm looking, Terry. This is Tracy.
Okay. And Dewey said it works for him?
Yes, sir.
And are you guys, would you like, I'd rather do it at 5:30 in the morning or 5:30. Yeah, I'd actually like to do it at 5:30 in the morning, but 5:30 in the evening. How does that sound to the rest of you guys?
Sounds good.
Does that work with you, Melissa?
I'd prefer if we could push it closer to 6. Sometimes I'm waiting for Matt to get home and it's pretty close to dinner.
Okay.
So 6 is better if I could.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do 6. I'm good. I'm good with that.
Terry.
Yes.
Terry, I'm working till dark 30 on all my jobs, and I have jobs as far as the coast.
Yeah.
Silverton, up the canyon. And
No, I get it. I get it, Tracy.
Okay.
So let's just
you guys go ahead and set the schedule. I'll get there as quick as I can.
Perfect. Okay, so let's do it for the 28th of January at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
You have that, Amber?
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to number 8, policy review of the ARs. And
No action was needed here, just
nope.
review.
So those are those. Hey, do those need to be reviewed to close our book, or need to be adopted to close our books too, or just the ones prior?
No, those ARs actually don't have to be adopted by the board. They just need to be reviewed by the board. There are certain ARs that have to be adopted by the board. For instance, the sexual harassment complaint procedure, and that's why that one was needing to be discussed, because it needed to be
Okay.
adopted.
Okay. Okay. So is there any other comments on the policy reviews of the ARs? If not, we'll move to board comments. So Melissa, do you have any board comments?
I have to say that I was a little disappointed to get the email from the superintendent and Hattie and Amber regarding our last meeting. I thought we had a good constructive meeting, last board meeting, and our board actually needs to ask tough questions sometimes, especially around audit and financial accountability. We're instructed to ask audit and accountability questions. The list of questions that we've been given from our auditors are actually some of those. Sometimes they're even difficult to ask questions. One of them requires the superintendent to leave so we can ask our business manager some questions if she's been compromised. So I know that sometimes those questions don't feel good, but the financial integrity of our district is a responsibility of the board, and we may need to ask questions that don't feel good, but it's still our responsibility to ask those, and they may not be directed in any direction, but we still have to ask those. And we're still required by law to perform and conduct an audit and to make sure that monies are being handled appropriately. Public monies, not our money, right? Public money. So anyway, it kind of bothers me that was brought up, and I thought that questions were respectful, and I didn't think that they were directed to employees or about employees, but about processes, and I thought we got back really good answers. And anyway, I didn't, if I asked anything that made anyone feel uncomfortable, I certainly didn't ask thinking I was asking in a way that put pressure on anybody, but knowing that questions about money and responsibility and fiduciary responsibility may not feel good, but we still have to ask those. And I actually feel a little bit out of sorts in some ways that we're not there face to face and in person. We don't have those cards in front of us with all of those accountability questions on those. I didn't make those up. Auditors gave us those questions. So I guess maybe I'd like to have those sent back to the board, or maybe we could have those in our packet as a placeholder that we could ask those. And I feel like we should be comfortable asking those during budget and during the finance part, and not be chastised for asking those. So anyway, that's what I got.
Okay, thank you. Dewey, you have any comments?
Not at this time, Terry.
Okay, Tracy? Tracy?
I'm here. I'm trying to construct.
You want me to give you a few minutes?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Kay?
I like to thank the board committees for doing their jobs and working so hard to present us with materials to cover during the board meeting. I appreciate that. Appreciate all that are, I appreciate Chris Shaw with what he's presented to us with the Connect videos, and have enjoyed hearing the different presentations through the 6 connections that he's done. And that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, Tracy.
Yeah. So kind of hopping on with Melissa here. The last board meeting when I was trying to get some questions answered, is very difficult for me to continue to have a cohesive thought process with respects to all the interruptions when I was trying to ask our business manager for questions. And I would really appreciate the board being respectful of board members who are asking questions to not interrupt board members during the course of processes. Amber, you do an amazing job. I'm really glad we're getting ready to work on a work session here. I'm extremely pleased, so that there's no misunderstandings as to interaction. I regard you highly in your position, as well as Hattie, and I'm very appreciative of both of you and what you bring to the district and how you contribute to the district. So with that being said, even tonight, I was disgruntled with our processes, and we need to follow a process that puts forth motions in order for discussion to happen. I understand that history needs to be brought into certain aspects of things. And I understand that when we're going to talk about a sensitive topic or a policy, with regards to how we're going through things right now with policy, can't remember everything that is in our policy packet. So we need time. And Terry, thank you very much for allowing me to re-review the policies as they're being presented for discussion. But we absolutely need to respect each board member, and with regards to conversation or questions when they have the floor. I appreciate each and every one of you, all my fellow board members, very much, and I respect each and every one of you. And I didn't feel as though that I was given that respect last month at our last board meeting when I was trying to get through a process. So understand that I love and appreciate you all, and no offense, and we can all do better is what we can do. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. There's a couple things I want to talk about, and the main, or one of the things that I want to talk about is I really appreciate how our school, I've said this probably just about every meeting, but I just really appreciate how our staff, our school, even the board members, how diligent we are to get the job done, to do what is put before us, to educate our children of the community. And you know, I'm involved a little bit in some other districts that don't work this way, and they're not as cohesive. And there's some pretty strifeful things going on in those districts, and I don't sense that here, especially with our teachers. And I know that everybody is very passionate about their beliefs, just as we as board members are passionate about our beliefs and about what we think should be done here as far as policy and running meetings and stuff like that. And I respect that. And I respect that passion, because if we can direct that passion in a positive way, we can get a lot more done. And it's good for the whole community. So I just want to thank everybody for all the work that they do and the passion that they have to do the jobs that are put before them. Our staff and our teachers and our administration office and our fellow board members. And the other last thing I want to say is, hopefully my goal is by next February, this coming February, next month, we're going to meet in public, because I do not like these Zoom meetings at all, because you don't really get to see the person who's talking and understand it as well. So that is my goal, is that we can meet in public on next Wednesday or next Friday. So with that being said, Amber, do we have any comments from the audience? Amber, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was just checking.
Okay.
I do not see any at this time.
Okay. So now I got to find my agenda. Okay, so with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting on the 11th of January at, well, my clock here says 8:30 or 8:26. So you guys all have a good evening, the rest of the evening.
Hey, Terry.
Yes.
Terry, there's a statement that I see Donica Fouts there that wants to make a statement in our questions and answers.
And where's that statement?
It says right here. Sorry, you can go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I just I see in our Q&A in our chat there that she'd like to make a statement.
Oh, okay. I can't even, where? Oh, it's in Q&A. Okay, let me see it.
So Amber,
she doesn't know how.
Yeah, I don't know, Amber, if you can find her, but I just saw that pop up.
Would you like me to allow her to talk, Terry?
Yeah, go ahead.
There you go, Donica. I've made you able to speak. You can unmute yourself and speak if you'd like. Hello. I see that you've unmuted yourself, Donica, but we cannot hear you.
Is she still on?
Yes, I do believe so. I have her unmuted. Let me see if I promote her to a panelist. I don't know if that'll help or anything, but
It sounds to me, Amber, as though, this is Tracy. It sounds to me as though that she's trying to communicate, but it's not intelligible via the computer.
yeah, she's unmuted. And I've made her a host, or I mean, I've made her a panelist so that she could speak. Sorry, I can't hear her. Or then.
Well, Donica, if if you'd like to write your thoughts down, we will. When we meet on the 28th, we will publicly read those thoughts, or if we can meet publicly on the 28th, we will. You can even come there and say your thoughts, but it looks like we're having technical difficulties. She's still not speaking, Amber?
No, you'd be able to hear her because she's unmuted.
Okay. Okay. So with that, we're going to close. Did she just speak?
No, sorry, I'm just telling you she's a panelist
Okay.
now, just like you guys are, so she can speak freely.
Okay. So since we can't hear her, we'll maybe you can contact her tomorrow, Amber.
Yes,
And-
if I can get her contact information from the signups, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. With that, we're going to close this meeting at 8:30. Okay. Thank you. You guys all have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
Okay. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Good night.